Now we're recording. Okay. Case 40. This is from Book of Equanimity. We are, I'm sorry, tell us your name. Yes. Bethania. So welcome, Bethania. We are going through some Zen koans from the Book of Equanimity, just so you have some background on what we're doing. I don't know if you've ever heard of this book or Zen koans for that matter. No. Okay, then you're fine. So, just a quick definition: the Zen koan are a set of Zen riddles, if you will, to encourage people to get past their discursive way of thinking into direct experience. So they're intentionally worded in a way that really can't be answered, in a normal dialogue sort of way. You have to sort of demonstrate or experience what that answer should be, and be that experience rather than just an answer that comes off the mind. It's more the experience of the body that is in play here. So I think this is probably a good koan to kind of to exemplify what this means. So this is case 40, Ummon's white and black. Preface to the assembly. When the wheel of activity turns, the wisdom eye is still bewildered. When the jewel mirror opens, not the tiniest speck of dust adheres. When the fist opens, nothing drops to the ground. Being in accord with things, one knows the right moment. When two swords cross, how will they interplay? Main case. Attention. Ummon said to Kempo, "Your answer, please, sir." Kempo replied, "Did you meet this old monk yet?" Ummon said, "If so, then I'm too late." Kempo remarked, "Is that so? Is that so?" Ummon admitted, "Instead of kohaku, you're really kohoku." Appreciatory verse. Bowstring and arrow notch interlock. The net's jeweled knots reflect each other. 100 bull's eyes shoot with knot and arrow lost. Myriad shapes are perceived with ray after ray, unhindered, obtaining the dharani of words, dwelling in the samadhi of play. How subtle it is, the seeming and the real intermingled. How surely it's thus, everywhere, to be oneself. So it is not intended to make any sense. But it is an interesting exchange between these two masters. Ummon is considered to be the last Zen master of the Golden Age of the Tang Dynasty. He was born at 865, 864, something like that, and lived for 85 years. And he is probably one of the most mentioned teachers in all of the koan system. So he's a very famous, well-known teacher. Kempo was also a very advanced teacher. We don't know very much about him, but he shows up every once in a while. So, what a way to start a conversation! But don't we do that with people? It's like, "Hey, what's up?" So that question is never literal. It's like people asking, "How are you?" No one really wants to know how you are. So he starts with this really question. "Please, your answer, please, sir." And Kempo did not get caught in the trap, because the normal response would be, "What? What was the question?" So, what are you asking me for? I don't know what to say. So he responds just from who he is. "Did you meet this old monk yet? Have you met me?" Ummon said, "If so, I'm too late." A very specific answer, because Kempo uses the past tense, and the past does not exist. So the only thing that's present is the only thing that's real is what's here and now. So they're playing very skillfully off each other in this dialogue. So Ummon, your answer, please, sir. Have you met this old monk yet? Ummon says, too late. If I had met you in the past, whoever that was is gone. Like you're a new person every single moment. And so Kempo remarked, so I've met my match. Is that so? Is that so? And this is also a very clever way to answer people who are going to do nothing but argue with you. So it's a very non-committal, just letting it be there. So people take a position, their position is right, they're not about to change. There's no need to argue with that. Is that so? Okay, we'll just let it go there. So Ummon realizes that they are very equally matched. His next line is, instead of kohaku, you're really kohoku. So this is an old Chinese story about kohaku, and they're spelled very similar, K-O-H-A-K-U, and then K-O-H-O-K-U. It's kohaku, kohoku. Kohaku was there's a legendary story about this man who was just a con man, swindler, fraudster, constantly lying to people, and he was good at it. So he was this very successful con man back in the day. We have a few of those running around today. And but Kohoku, what is that? Yes, that's so. But Kohoku was even better at swindling and conning than Kohaku, because Kohoku could trick Kohaku. So Ummon is really comparing the two. Ummon thought, I thought I was the Zen master and I could catch you in a non-present thought, in a discursive answer, but I didn't catch you. You met me, match for match. And even with that, his response to "I'm too late," is that so? Is that so? That's even a better answer. So, the swindler got swindled. The trickster got tricked. So the two of them are equally matched, as he is describing in the Zen. So, what does this have to do with everyday life? This is really about being yourself. Interestingly enough, because that's what is in the appreciatory verse. And as we get down to one of the lines that may be confusing, obtaining the dharani of words and dwelling in the samadhi of play. Dharani is a magical repeated set of words that are supposed to have magical powers. So there are a lot of chants within the Buddhist canon that are described as dharanis. And we do two of them at Yokoji. The third and fourth services are the Nomo San Mandan Motonao Ohara Kodosha Sonanan Toji Toin. Those words do not translate well into English because they're transliterated Sanskrit. So they're Japanese sounding words that didn't mean anything in Sanskrit. So so it's just this invocation of the Avalokiteshvara, of compassion, that you're repeating over and over again, and it's intended not to be understood but just felt. So much like the old Gregorian chants that they did in the early church, they were just very subtle, very very monotone, just to be felt. They were to create an atmosphere of a higher being in the church. So it was very ethereal sounding, and the same thing is going on with dharanis. So obtaining the dharani of words, or using words in a magical way, or dwelling in the samadhi of joy. Samadhi is deep, deep meditation. So being able to play in samadhi is basically just doing your everyday life in this deep meditation. So you practice meditation enough to the point that you never leave it. You're always in samadhi, but you're responding in a way that's appropriate for every situation. So that deep quietude has penetrated to the point of the guy who is riding backward on the ox going back into the marketplace. So he's gone through all the steps, the 10 ox riding period pictures. He's gone through all the steps of seeking enlightenment, finding enlightenment, and practicing enlightenment. And then he obtains this emptiness because the ninth circle of the 10 ox riding periods is empty. There's nothing there. So that you obtain this level of emptiness, so that you can carry and constantly be in samadhi, in meditation, in practice, no matter what you're doing. So, and he's having a good time. So he's going back to work, he's going into the marketplace, but he's doing it riding backward on an ox that he has tamed, this enlightenment he has tamed, and he's playing the flute at the same time. So he's having a good time with life. So that's what that references to, in the dwelling in the samadhi of play. So how do we accomplish this wonderful place where we're just able to joyfully and happily respond to life, no matter what's happening? Not, and I use the word joy intentionally because happiness has the connotation of being separate from sadness, whereas joy is inclusive of sadness, because you can still, when you get to that point of acceptance of a tragedy, there is that joy that wells up from being aware of having learned from it, from having experienced, if someone had died, you experienced that person when they were alive, and you're glad you had that experience. Sad that they're gone, but you're still finding that joy that comes through that acceptance. So not happiness, but this joy of playing in samadhi, of just being present with every situation as it arises, and how subtle it is, the seeming and the real intermingled, delusion and enlightenment, not separate, because which is hard to imagine. In this practice, we're not trying to get out of reality. We're trying to figure out how to live within reality as it is. And that's, and in that reality as it is are a lot of very delusionary ideas. And to drop our judgment about those delusions and play joyfully with people in their delusions, and be able to not attach to that and come back to the experience of the real present moment. So the seeming delusion and the real intermingled, not separate from each other. How surely it's thus. It is just as it is everywhere to be oneself. So this so-called self, and it can, at least for me, I'll just speak for myself. I was always often confused when I hear one talk from my teachers, my Zimmer Roshi intention on no self. There is no self. Nothing. There's nothing to obtain. There's nothing there. And then the next very talk is finding your true self, being your true self, and I'd be like, okay, what? Which is it? We got a self or no self? Well, the true self is no self. So those two are not separate from each other. And the true self is the self that is in this constant flow of reality, which is never stopped. You can't hang on to now. The minute you say, I'm here now, it's gone. Too late. Bus has left the station. There is no place to stick. There's no place that you're not in this constant flow of the now that just keeps going. It's not going to stop for you and wait for you to figure out where now is. You're always in it. You're never out of it. And this practice is really just a mechanism for getting you to recognize that, because you're never not in now. You're never not enlightened. You're always enlightened. But we get in our own way. we put up all kinds of barriers. We have all these identities that we call ourselves. I call myself a musician. I was an HR professional. All these identities that we usually label ourselves with what we do, and not by what we are. So all those identities are, they serve a purpose. So they do when I'm, when I was, in my office as the HR director for that facility, I had a job to do, and a particular persona that I needed to project to make sure that people were not doing things to cause the organization any more liability than was absolutely necessary. So that's who I wore at that time. Then I'm an entirely different person when I'm at my piano. All that gets let go, and hopefully I can find my way to the flow of music and to just being present with that expression of myself. And so the true self contains all of these. It's not separate from any of them. They're all useful, but none of it is you're not stuck with any of them. They're transient. They're temporary. They serve a purpose, but then you move on. And the more freedom you find in this teaching, in this practice, that movement is just that much more fluid. So it's been a direct exercise in fluidity as I've met with the challenges, because they called me, of course last minute, because no one plans with my ideal of a head, because they needed a sound system in this room that they were constructing a tea room that were for this seminar to happen. And I used to go out and do a lot of gigging as a pianist. So I have an amplifier, and I've got mics, and I've got all the accoutrement of being a touring musician. And so they asked if they could use my sound system. And I said, sure. Brought all my stuff down, started to plug it in, and immediately I'm recognizing how old my stuff is. Because it has been 25 years since I was last doing all that gigging. And so my equipment is a little aged, and it was certainly not functioning as well as I had remembered. So immediately I'm like, okay, I got to get into tech mode and figure this out, because people will be here in an hour. So to be able to flow into that and get it to work. So I finally broke down yesterday and went and bought a new wireless microphone set, because the old set was the mic just kept, the poor teacher he'd be in the mid-sentence and the mic would cut out, so it was intermittent, and I kept trying to fiddle with it. And I finally changed the cable. That solved the problem. Then as I'm looking at the cable, I'm seeing tiny little bite marks. And I'm going, my cats. Had chewed through my cords. So I had to laugh, yes. The cats had the last word. Anyway, so solved that problem by spending a few $100s on a new microphone set. So hopefully left it with somebody else this morning, and I'll get back to it to see, what is it? Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will. So it's nice to be prepared. Unfortunately, I did have several mics, and I had several cables, and so just trying to make all that work. And tea ceremony is very quiet and subdued and sophisticated, and I'm trying to be all that while I'm completely frustrated by this sound system that is not working due to my own lack of care of the equipment. Anyway, so that was my real world experience of playing in samadhi, and there's more of that to come. So, and Shishin in his book, if you've read the commentary, gives another example of a similar conversation, which I thought was really kind of funny. There was an old story about King Milinda and a famous monk, the Venerable Nagasena. These sound Indian words, so this is probably pre-China. The king said, "I'm going to pose a question. Can you answer?" The monk said, "Please ask your question." The king said, "I've already asked." The monk responded, "I've already answered." Then the king said, "What did you answer?" Nagasena countered, "What did you ask?" The king said, "I've asked nothing." And the monk replied, "I've answered nothing." So, there are certain positions that are able to tell the king the truth. And other than that, the other positions are expected to go along with the king, but only the court jesters and the monks were allowed to actually tell the king something other than what the king expected you to agree with. So, nice position to be in. However, these were often the first people who were killed when the king, or when the court changed, or when the king changed, because they had all the secrets of the previous administration. So, nice to be there while that person is in power, but when that power changes, woe is you. Anyway, so this level of play is really this flow state that we now call it today. So being able to just be present with what you're doing and having nothing else distract you from that. And you've all sensed that when you're doing something that you really love and you're just in it, you don't have any distractions, no one's interrupted you, the phone hasn't rung for at least 10 minutes, and you've had sense enough to turn your notifications off on your text messages, and you look up at 3 hours have gone by, and you're completely unaware. So that's what that is. You're like, that's the kind of joy, the kind of complete absorption into everyday life that this practice provides. And it takes time. It takes letting go of being attached to things, especially attached to things of the way you think things should be. Like my cables should work. And what do I do when they don't? So you're just able to just easily move into what needs to be done, and without any break, without any thought, without any consideration or resistance, because that's what comes up, is that we want things a certain way, and when things come up as not being in that certain way, we're like, okay, no, how can I make this the way I want it to be? And we're constantly trying to make reality what we think it is. And we see extremes of that because people are convinced that reality is the way they think it is, and no matter what people tell them, there's no convincing them of that. And once you take that position, you then have to defend it. And that's where the suffering begins, is in that resistance, in that defense. And it comes up in little ways and in big ways as well, as you don't have to listen to too many minutes of the news to see that happening, all over the place. But our job is, our lives, right here, right now, our true selves, which is not attached to any particular self. So it is the actualization of no self, is being that true self, of not being attached, and just really finding the playful joy. And sometimes you get to be the trickster. You get to be kohaku. And then sometimes you get caught up in your own tricks and have to trick your way out of your own tricking, and you have to be kohoku. All of these are metaphors that we have access to, that we already embody, and we have the ability to take care of reality using these many tricks, these many tools that are at our disposal. So, the various masks that we wear, the various jobs that we do, or in the various relationships that we have, sometimes are necessary and sometimes very useful. There's probably some boundaries to those to that usefulness. But at times, you know, you get to play. You get to be someone else for a few minutes, a few hours, as it is compassionately necessary for the moment. But the trick is, come back to reality. Come back to what's real, your true self, your no self, and keep this practice as a way of really facilitating that flow of life. Okay. Questions, comments, disagreements, um, dissensions.
Coffee.
I get it. Yes, I'm not. I haven't had my coffee yet either. That's coming up next. So play for just a few more minutes. Anything from the Zoom? Questions, comments? Okay. So his true self speaks. what what is it you really want, Mike? Don't hold back. Oh, here's my first part. All right, then we'll go ahead and close. 4 vows. Oh no, you do 4 vows at the end. Okay, that's right. All right, so go get your coffee. And come back and sit another 30 minutes after that, and I'm going to take myself back to more Japanese tea ceremony. And hopefully I'll see all of you next week. I apologize to the Zoomers that I have to take my computer with me, because I didn't remind anyone to bring their laptop. So please do sit, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, everybody.